Okay. As I was saying, you can't estimate cost until you know what cost is all about. I get it now. The question is this: what is cost? I like to be practical. For example, now maybe you are doing something and you achieve success or you achieve failure. I don't want to hear anything, but you ask you, oh, that really cost me a lot. I get it now. That really cost me a lot. It's still a cost. I get it now. So what it cost is all about is that the cost is simply referred to anything you sacrifice to achieve a goal, to achieve something. Can you see now? So I don't want to go to the knowledge we know before that. We know that when you talk about the cost, you say cost simply refers to the amount of money expended in the production or provision of goods or services. Good. It's a fantastic definition. I get it now. The cost expended in the production or provision of goods and services. But if you want to, in the general terms, you can just say, okay, the cost simply refers to the resources used to achieve a goal. Can you see now? I think you are getting it now. So anything you incurred to achieve a goal is your cost. For example, now I'm trying to produce a product. Now all the resources, the material, the labor, and any other things are put in place. All the factors of production are put together to produce that product is my cost. I mean, the same thing, if I'm rendering the service as we are now, all the energy we are putting in place, all the cost placed around it, the services, the labor, and the other material we put in place to deliver this service is our cost. I get it now. So that's what we call cost. I get it now. Now, I'll be brief here because this is not the real class of cost accounting. Now, when you talk of cost, that's what we call cost center. Cost center. See where we are going? But we need to explain some terminology before we get to where we are going. When you talk of cost center, the cost center can be simply referred to, let me use an example now, a factory department. A factory department is a center because you can accumulate all the costs incurred in the factory as a factory cost. I mean, can you see now? As a factory accumulated to that department. I get it now. Can you see now? You can look at an organization, a branch can be a cost center. That is what is the cost incurred by that particular branch is a cost, the accumulated cost for that branch. I get it now. That's why we said a cost center simply refers to a center or a department or a branch for which cost can be accumulated. Can you see now? If we can accumulate a cost for a particular center or a particular branch or a particular department, that particular department or center or a branch is what? Is a cost center. I get it now. Because you can know that, okay, in this factory, the total factory cost is 100 million. In the admin department, the total admin cost is 50 million. The finance department, the total finance cost incurred by department is this. The Gariki Center, Gariki branch, the total cost incurred is this. Can you see now? That is what? A cost center. Then we have what we call cost unit. Anytime you see cost unit, you are simply referred to the word cost per unit. Can you see now? That is, it simply refers to the cost of a unit of a particular product or service. I get it now. Can you see now? That's what we talk of cost unit. That means the measurement or the ascertain or the determination of the cost of a unit of a product or service. I get it now. So that is the cost unit. Now, You are breaking it to the unit. Look at from the center to the what? To the unit. Let's see an example now. The factory. A factory department incur 100 million. Factory cost. 100 million. Abi? In this factory department, they are producing 3 products. Product A, product B, and product C. Am I right? We need to break it down and allocate this 100,000 to these 3 products in the department. Can you see now? Accumulated cost, then we allocate to what? To the product of that department. So let's say A produce 30,000 units, B 10,000 units, 50,000 units. I don't want to know how we apportion it, but let me just say the cost of each department of each product now. Let's say approximately 30,000, 20,000, and 50,000 naira. I mean, this is the what? The allocation of the factory cost to the what? To the product. So the product is absorbing the cost now. They are absorbing the what? The cost. Can you see now? So now, if you want to go for cost units now, you need to know, okay, what is the cost per unit? If product A incur 30,000, product B incur 20,000, product C incur 50,000, which give us the accumulated factory cost of 100 million. Sorry, we are talking about million here. So I'm putting 1,000 up here. So let me say that. So if that is the case now, we are looking at, okay, what is the cost unit? Am I right? That is, what is the cost per unit of A, which will be 30,000 divided by what? The 30,000 unit. Am I right now? No, that is 30 million divided by what? 30,000 units now. The 20 million divided by what? 10,000 units. The 50 million divided by what? 50,000 units, like 1,000, 1,000 what? 2,000. That's the cost per unit. That's the unit cost. Because you can see some question, I said under ABC, determine the cost unit using ABC or anything you see cost unit. That's all cost per unit. Don't worry, there's no problem there. Now, there's what we call cost object. Now, here, the cost you are determining here is for which object? A. Can you see now? The cost here is for which object? Can you see now? That means the cost object simply refers to the object for which the cost is being ascertained. Can you see logic now? The cost for which the cost is being determined is being ascertained. That we call cost object. I think we are moving gradually. Now, I just use this to explain one or two things. This is not where we are actually going. Am I right? Well, it's still good, right? So, now, you can never be able to estimate your cost if you can't analyze that cost. How will you estimate? You want to determine how much it's going to cost me to produce 10,000 units of this product. Am I right? You can't do that until you know, okay, what is the analysis of that your cost? If in terms of behavior, which part of this cost is variable, which part of this cost is fixed. So before you can estimate, you need to know how to analyze the what? The cost. So let's go to cost analysis. When you talk of the cost analysis simply refers to the process of classifying and estimating cost. Can you see now? The process of what? Of classifying and estimating cost. Can you see now? That was the cost analysis. Before you can estimate, you must classify that cost. So it is that cost that will not determine how to estimate that cost. I get it now. When you talk of classification of cost classification, you are talking about grouping of cost using certain parameters. I get it now. So you use certain parameter to group the cost. So there are different ways you can group your cost. Am I right? We have what we call classification by nature. So when you talk of classification by nature, you are grouping that particular cost based on the nature of that cost. How? Is it a direct cost? Is it indirect cost? Can you see now? That's the classification by what? By nature. So when you are grouping by nature, you are talking about what is the classification in terms of direct and indirect cost. Look at it now. We are at the center here now to produce ski product. I mean, this is a ski product now. Now, we look at, okay, what is the cost? Whatever we are paying the lecturer, is that power, is a cost. I mean, and if you look at that cost, is a directly traceable to the product ski. Can you see now? The labor you pay to lecturer based on their labor hours is direct. I mean, the material provided to the students is a what? Is a cost which can be traced directly to that product. Am I right? Now that's direct. I mean, then look at indirect cost now. The rent you pay, is it directly related to what? To ski. It is indirect cost. That is why indirect cost must likely be fixed or variable. Understand now? So indirect cost, you can't trade directly, but it's also incurred. I get it now. So that is classification by what? By nature. You can also go for classification by behavior. Classification by what? By behavior. That's the behavioral classification. That is when you classify cost based on how that cost reacts to the changes in the level of activities. So how that particular cost react or behave when the activity level change. For example now, a company that is producing products, let's say machine, we can use, okay, how many hours can the machine producer use or produce? I get it now. So what is the total hours of that machine? I get it now. We can use machine at what? At our activity level. If we want 1,000 machine hours, how many units? You can use labor hours. How many hours for a product to produce a unit of a product? If you produce 10 units, how many hours? If you put 100 units, how many hours? I get it now. You can use hours. You can use units of a product. That how many units to determine as a activity of the what? Or the product. Can you see now? So these are the things, these are the things talk about the activity. Now, when your activity level increase, what happens to your cost? Does it change or remain the same? This is where you talk about classification by what? By behavior. That is, variable cost and fixed cost. Can you see now? When the classification by behavior, you took a classification of cost into variable and fixed. I will come back to this later. Let me go further first. I will still come back. I will come back to that behavior later. You also have classification by function. Good morning.
This is why you see here for coordination.
Right on.
Thank you.
When are you starting?
My people should be coming around that time. It's even 11:30. They should be around.
So we continue to where you come.
I'm just informing you because
Yes.
when they come.
That's no problem.
Okay. Thank you.
So you can go for classification by function. Are you getting now? That is, when you classify the cost based on the function of that cost. So this is what the accountant normally use when they prepare the financial report. You will see cost of sales. You will see nominal expenses. Am I right? Let me explain what you hear now. At this point, you are talking classification based on what? Production cost, admin cost, and selling and distribution cost. I get it now. If you look at that, that's the functions of the cost. Can you see now? So if you are looking at financial report, the cost of sales only include all the direct costs and producer costs. Abi? When you get to the operating expense, you will see admin expenses. I guess now. You will see selling and distribution. That is the classification by what? By functions. So you can go for classification by. So that is the classification in terms of what? Producer cost, selling and distribution, and the administrative cost. You can also go for classification by control. Classification by what? By control. This one talk about how the manager can influence the cost. That's how can they influence the cost? If the manager can influence that particular cost, we call it controllable cost. If they can't influence that particular cost, we call it uncontrollable cost. For example, now, let's say at a department level, they give you an authority up to 100,000 naira. I mean, any cost below 100,000 or up to 100,000 naira, you can incur it. At that point, definitely you, at the head of that department, have control on something below or up to 100,000 naira. So that is something you can influence. You want to buy, because go and do this instantly, and what? Release the fund or approve the fund or give the authorization to incur that cost. So that means you have control on that cost. But anything above that is now beyond your control. That's the controllable and the uncontrollable cost. So if you look at this by nature, by control, and by function, it's not really that is important, but it's not very great ingredient at this level. The major ingredient is what? Is what? Classification by behavior. You want to estimate. You can only estimate if you know how that cost behave. Which one is variable? You vary it. Which one is fixed? It will be fixed. And don't forget, we said that classification by behavior simply refers to the classification of cost based on how that cost reacts to the changes in the level of activities. Fine, good. Now, when you talk classification of behavior, you talk about variable cost and fixed cost. So by behavior, you are talking about variable cost and fixed cost. Let me say something here, very, very vital. Anytime you see variable cost, without attaching anything to it, we are talking about total variable cost. Anytime you see fixed cost, without attaching anything to it, we are talking about total fixed cost. I get it now. Anytime you see cost, it refers to total cost. Please take note of that. It's very vital. Now, when you talk of variable cost, which is the total variable cost here, we are talking about the cost that vary, that change when the activity level change. Can you see now? The cost that change when the activity level change. You produce 1 unit, you incur 1 naira. You produce 2 units, you incur 2 naira. You produce 20 units, you incur 20 naira. Please take note of this now. When you talk of the total variable cost, we said a cost that change, Abi. We are talking about total variable cost. When you talk of variable cost per unit, it remains constant. Look at it here. Your total variable cost is this. This is the graph. This is what? Level of activity. This is what? Cost, which is variable cost here, unit. 0 point. You produce 1 unit, let's say you incur 20 naira. Let's 2 unit, 20 unit, 30 unit, 40 unit, 50 unit. Let me come here. What am I doing here? I'm not serious. I'm not that serious. So 20 unit, let's say you incur 40 naira. 30 units, let's say you incur 60 naira. You incur 80 naira. You incur 100 naira. Am I right? This is what? The total variable cost graph. The higher the unit, the higher the cost. Do you get it now? Now, when you now look at this now, what is changing is the total variable cost. The variable cost per unit, is what? Is constant. Let's look at it here. Hey, you produce 20 units at this point, Abi. What is the cost per unit? The total cost, Abi. Total variable cost. The cost per unit is what? You produce 60 units here. The total variable cost is what? Cost per unit is what? So what we are saying here is that your variable cost per unit is constant. That is why your total variable cost formula is BX. B is what? Variable cost per unit, which is 2 naira. X is the level of activities. So by the time I know my variable cost per unit now, if I want to predict, I want to estimate for 100 units, I will just say 2 naira times 100 units, 200 naira. Do you get it now?
So the 2 naira, is it from that graph?
40 divided by 20. You produce 20 units, you incur 40 naira. You produce 30 units, you incur 60 naira. Abi, how much is it per unit? Cost per unit here. 60 divided by what? 30. You produce 40 units, you incur what? 80 naira. Cost per unit how much? You produce 50 units, you incur what? 100 naira. How much? This is what they call linear variable cost. Do you get it now? So, at this level, your variable cost per unit is constant. I get it now. So that's why we say, okay, the total variable cost is what? Is BX. B represents the what? The variable cost per unit, while X represents what? The level of activities. Now, but by the time your level of activity is not a straight line, we call it curvilinear. I get now, or non-linear variable cost, which can be convex or concave. I get now, because some cost, as product is increasing, the unit is increasing. That increase in unit leads to higher increase in what? In cost. Can you see now? You have a cost that is like this. Or you have a cost that is like this. before plotting a graph, is it not better to know the table before plotting a graph? Not just plot the graph without the table. The table has given you the graph here. You produce the 20 units. If I come to give you a table now, we just say 20 unit 40 naira. I mean, 30 unit 60 naira. I mean, 40 unit 80 naira. That's the table. I mean, we put it to the graph. You don't need to go to elementary level. You are now a professional guys. Do you get it now? So now no. You are this level now. So now if you look at it here, from here to here, that's the increase in cost, Abi. From here to here, that's the increase in what? In activities, Abi. Did they increase at the same proportionate? The higher increase in activity level here lead to what? Lesser increase in cost. The cost also increased, but it increased at a lesser rate. For example, you want to do photocopy of material. They say you want to produce 10 units, is 10 naira. Abi? But you say, what now? Okay, I want to produce 100 copies. Abi? It's okay, 100 copies, and give you 9 naira, 8 naira. I get it now. Can you see now? The activity is increasing, but the increase in cost is not at the same rate. So it can occur like that. The one you produce more, the increase will reduce. The total cost will also increase, Abi, but it will increase not at a linear rate. I get it now. The more you buy, the lesser you pay. I get it now. But that does not mean that your total variable cost is not increasing. It's increasing, but it's increasing at what? At decreasing rate. The same thing. Look at this one also. It doesn't give me what I want here. Let me use that. Don't worry. Let me use it. You still give me small, but it's somehow the same. Abi? But it's not actually the same. Shall we look at it from this point? I get it now. Here, it's still not, but there's just a small change here. But I want you to, that what I wanted to achieve actually. You look at the increase in activity level, lead to what? Greater increase in cost. I get it now. So let's say convex or concave, that's curvilinear. I get it now. Please take note of that. It can be linear. What do this one? You don't need it at this level. I just need to explain it to you. What I need is what? Variable cost. Vary based on the changes in the level of activity. And it's what? Bx. But here, if anything will happen to this, the customer must tell you. I get it now. So if nothing happen, we use our formula here. I get it now. So now, we said that the variable cost of behaviors can be variable or fixed. Abi? This is the variable now. Then when you talk about the fixed cost, you are talking of the cost that remain constant irrespective of changes in the level of activities. It remains the same irrespective of changes in the level of activities. Now, example of this is rent. Your rent may be the same, even if you are producing lesser. Your rent can still remain the same if you are producing higher. I get it now. So that means the changes in level of activities does not affect the cost. So the cost still remain the same. That's what we call long-term fixed cost. So it will be like this. If you are incurring 500,000 naira as rent. Whatever you produce at your level of activities, you are still incurring the same 500,000 naira rent. Do you get it now? Please, this what I'm saying here is what? Is a total cost. That means your fixed cost remain constant. I mean, is it what? Constant. But what we are talking about here is what? Long-term fixed cost. I get it now. Please take note. We said the total variable cost is changing, Abi, but the variable cost per unit is what? Remain the same. Let me say something here. Your rent is on 500,000 naira. If you produce 1,000 units, I want you to see something here. Very, very vital. This is level of activity. If you produce 1,000 units, if you produce 2,000 units, if you produce 10,000 units, what is your fixed cost per unit here? This is 500,000 as rent. What is the fixed cost per unit here? 500, Abi, per unit, Abi. When you produce 2,000 units, what is the fixed cost per unit? No? The 500 divided by what? What do you have? When you produce 10,000 units, what's your fixed cost per unit? 15 naira. Do you get it now? When your capacity, you bought a machine that had the capacity to produce 100,000 units. Can you see now? You bought a machine for production, and that machine can produce as a capacity, that's a normal capacity of 100,000 units. I mean, that machine is 500,000. I mean, that means if you want to absorb that particular fixed cost on the product, on the unit, I mean, it will be 5 naira per unit. Am I right? But now, you don't have the market. You can only produce 1,000 units. I mean, even if that machine can produce 100,000 units, will you produce 100,000 units? You can only produce the 1,000 units because that's what you have market for as a rational producer. I get it now. Because you can only produce what you can sell. You don't want to produce to be waste. I mean, so now, in that case, it is that 1,000 units now that will absorb the 500,000 units of the cost. I mean, that's what they call in economics. They call it economies of scale. You get it now? By the time you can utilize your full capacity, it will make your fixed cost per unit to reduce. I get it now. Do you get it now? So you can now have a lower total cost compared to your competitor. You get it now? I want to make it more sense. You ask me a question. Ask your question if you don't clear. Here, your rent is 500,000. Let me use this class as an example now. Let's say the rent of this class now is 500,000 units. Abi? Agreed? And under normal capacity, this class can contain 100 people. Normal. Abi? And the rent is what? Is 500,000. And this class can contain 500 students. That is the normal capacity. Okay. If we have only one student, how much is the rent? How much are we going to absorb on that product, on that unit, per unit? 500,000. Have we? Because it's a unit. Let's say we now have 2 students. How much is that fixed cost to be absorbed on this unit? Divided by what? 2. Can you see now? So when we have 10 students now, can you see now? Can you see where it's going now? So the total fixed cost remain constant, but fixed cost per unit is variable. Take note. But what we know is that for a fixed cost is constant, A. Do you get it now? So if anything going to happen, the question will give us further information to accommodate that information in solving that question. Can you see now? But what we know here is what? The fixed cost is constant. That's the total fixed cost, which is represented by what? By A. Abi? Now, we now see that our total cost, which is fixed cost plus variable cost, Abi? Your total fixed cost represented by Y. That's a function. Fx, fixed cost, is what? A. Then fixed variable cost is what? Bx. This is your cost function.
Okay, why you present cost function?
Yeah, the total for cost, yes. This is the cost function now. The total cost equals to A plus Bx. I'm making small sense. So this is, now you want to estimate now. I can now use this information to estimate cost. Are we good to go? Now, that's the classification by, but I said something here that this is what we call long-time fixed cost. We have what we call short-term fixed cost also. Or they call it step cost. Or you call it step cost. Staircase. Look at it here. And I will explain it in class here. Some costs are like this. And like that. This cost, is it variable or fixed? Step. This is short time. Why is it short time? Let's say this is 50 unit, 100 unit, 150 unit, 200 unit, 250 unit. 250 naira, 500, 750, 1000, 1250. Can you relate? It means that this is a fixed cost also, Abi? But that fixed cost is taking step. Do you get it now? What does it mean is that within the range of 0 to 50, your fixed cost is constant, Abi? But outside that range, it changes. Another step, Abi? When the range of 100 again, it still remains at 500. When it is outside that range, if it's 101, it takes another step. Abi? That means this is a fixed cost that remains constant within the relevant range of level of activities. And I will explain you using this class. The fixed cost that remains the same. Look at the fixed cost before. We said fixed cost remains the same irrespective of changes in the level of activities. But here, as a step fixed cost, we are saying the fixed costs remain the same within the relevant range of activities. Outside that range, it takes another step. A practical example. I will use this class as an example now. Let's say, as For example, now, as I said earlier, the rent of this class 500,000 naira assume, Abi? And we said that this class can contain 100 students, Abi? Agreed, Abi? Let's say maximum or normally. And we don't like inconvenience our students, Abi? They must 100 is okay, Abi? We said that let us have fixed cost for class. A class is 500,000 naira, Abi? And we said that a class is 500,000, Abi? Two classes, how much? 1 million, Abi? Now, let me now come back now. Let now assume, no, enter. Enter, you can enter. Okay, your own class. Please, let me round up. So, let now assume that a class is 500,000, right? And we said that normally the class can contain 500 students, right? No, 100 students, Abi. 100 students, Abi. Now, if we have one student, how much our rent? 500,000, Abi. If we have 2 students, how much is the cost? If we have 50 students, how much is the cost? 500. If we have 99 students, how much is the cost? If we have 100 students, how much is the cost? 500. Now, if we have 101 students, how much is the cost? 1 million. Why? Because we need to get extra class. That means it will take a step, but it cannot take the same step or take a lower step or higher step. Depends on our bargaining power. So we are paying 500. You know, this was just a student. Please, let us just pay lesser. I get it now. Okay, I'll pay 250 instead of 500. That is the step fixed cost. So the cost remain the same within the relevant range of activities. Outside that activity, it will change. How we stop here for today, we are going to continue from there next class.